the AI that replaced 700 workers and why they had to come back. In February 2024, a financial technology company announced that a single artificial intelligence system was now doing the work of 700 customer service agents. 700, not over 10 years, not through gradual restructuring, not after a merger, one AI deployment, one company statement, and suddenly 700 human equivalents were no longer necessary. The company was Klarna, one of the largest financial technology firms in the world, and when the announcement went public, executives across nearly every major industry noticed immediately. Because the implications were obvious, if customer service could be automated at this scale, millions of jobs were about to become vulnerable. Wall Street loved it. Tech leaders called it a breakthrough. Investors called it efficiency. The headlines called it the future. And for a few months, the story appeared almost perfect. The AI handled millions of conversations, costs dropped, response times improved. The company projected tens of millions in additional profit. Then something started happening that spreadsheets had failed to predict. Customers became frustrated. Complex disputes escalated. Trust began eroding quietly, interaction by interaction. And eventually, the CEO who had publicly celebrated the AI rollout stood in front of cameras and admitted something almost nobody expected to hear from the leader of a $19 billion company. "We went too far." That sentence changed the story completely, because this was no longer a documentary about AI replacing workers. It became a documentary about what happens after the replacement. And somewhere tonight, inside another corporate boardroom, executives are studying the exact same numbers Klarna studied before making that decision. To understand why Klarna's announcement triggered so much anxiety, you first have to understand what the modern customer service industry actually is. It is enormous. Globally, more than 15 million people work in customer support and call center operations. In the United States alone, there are more than 2.5 million customer service workers. And these jobs occupy a strange position inside the modern economy. They are often dismissed as low-skill work by the people who have never done them. But in reality, they require emotional regulation, memory, communication skills, conflict management, multitasking, and patience under pressure for hours at a time. They are also one of the last large employment categories accessible to millions of people without elite degrees or specialized technical training. That matters, especially in communities where manufacturing declined years ago and stable employment options narrowed long before AI arrived. For decades, call centers quietly became economic anchors in places that had already lost factories. A call center arriving in a town meant jobs, predictable schedules, healthcare benefits, entry points into the workforce, a chance to stabilize financially. Then automation entered the industry in waves. First, automated menus, then online self-service systems, then chatbots, then virtual assistants. Each wave removed a layer of human interaction. Each wave promised lower costs and greater efficiency, and each wave reduced the number of people needed to keep the system running. But artificial intelligence changed something fundamental. Previous automation systems followed scripts. AI systems began approximating conversation itself. And that meant customer service became one of the first massive white-collar labor categories exposed to large-scale AI disruption. Klarna was founded in Stockholm in 2005. By 2024, the company had grown into one of the world's most recognizable financial technology platforms. 150 million active users, 2 million transactions processed every day, operations across 33 countries. And behind that scale sat a customer service operation handling enormous volumes of human frustration. Refund disputes, late payments, fraud concerns, account issues, missed deliveries, financial stress. Because the reality of customer service is that people rarely contact support when they are happy. They contact support when something has already gone wrong. To manage that scale, Klarna relied heavily on outsourced customer support providers, thousands of agents, distributed globally, handling conversations around the clock. Then, in October 2023, the company quietly stopped hiring. A few months later, the reason became clear. Klarna had partnered with OpenAI to build an AI customer support assistant. And according to the company, within its first month, the system handled 2.3 million customer conversations across 23 markets, in 35 languages, 24 hours a day. The numbers sounded extraordinary. The AI was reportedly handling roughly two-thirds of all customer service interactions. Average resolution time dropped from 11 minutes to 2. Repeat inquiries reportedly declined by 25%. And then came the sentence that transformed the announcement from impressive technology news into a global labor story. The AI system, according to Klarna, was now doing the equivalent work of 700 full-time agents. The projected financial impact was massive, approximately $40 million in improved annual profit. And suddenly, executives everywhere began asking the same question. If Klarna could do this successfully, why couldn't everyone else? But the reality underneath the announcement was more complicated than the headlines suggested, because 700 people were not suddenly escorted out of a building carrying cardboard boxes. The displacement happened quietly, almost invisibly. Klarna's customer service agents largely worked through outsourcing partners. When AI reduced the need for labor, many positions simply stopped being replaced. Workers left naturally, contracts shrank, openings disappeared, the hiring slowed, then stopped. And this may be the defining labor pattern of the AI era. Not dramatic replacement, gradual disappearance, the job posting that never returns, the department that quietly shrinks every quarter, the young worker entering the labor market and discovering the pathway that existed 5 years earlier no longer exists at all. That creates a very different kind of social disruption, because mass layoffs create headlines, but silent labor contraction creates confusion. Communities struggle to identify exactly what changed. Workers blame themselves. Governments respond slowly because the collapse happens incrementally instead of theatrically. And during this period, another hidden effect emerged inside Klarna's customer service operation. The AI handled the easy cases first. Password resets, simple refunds, routine billing questions, basic account issues, which meant the remaining human agents inherited something much harder. The emotionally charged interactions, the legally sensitive disputes, the customers already frustrated enough to bypass automation, the cases requiring judgment instead of pattern recognition. And suddenly, many human agents were no longer handling an ordinary distribution of customer interactions. They were handling only the worst ones. That matters psychologically and operationally, because automation often does not eliminate human work cleanly. Sometimes it concentrates the hardest forms of human work into smaller and smaller groups of people. For several months, the rollout appeared successful. The metrics supported the strategy. Costs decreased, volume increased, investors were enthusiastic. And internally, many executives across corporate America likely saw Klarna as proof that large-scale AI labor replacement was finally commercially viable. Then the edge cases began accumulating. Customers dealing with unusual disputes struggled to resolve issues through the AI system. Some interactions reportedly involved hallucinated information. Others escalated repeatedly without resolution. And because financial services involve money, identity verification, disputes, refunds, and compliance obligations, even small errors carried outsized consequences. A delayed package is frustrating. A wrongly handled financial dispute feels personal. And slowly, the hidden costs started surfacing, not immediately in revenue, but in friction, customer frustration, escalation complexity, trust deterioration, operational strain. This is where the story becomes much larger than Klarna, because what AI automates most effectively is usually the predictable middle of a process. And removing the predictable middle changes the economics of everything surrounding it. The remaining human work becomes harder. The remaining customer problems become messier. The emotional intensity rises. The margin for error shrinks. Then came the reversal. By 2025, Klarna began increasing human support involvement again for more complex interactions. And eventually, CEO Sebastian Siemiatkowski publicly admitted the company had overcorrected. "We went too far." That sentence matters because executives almost never say it publicly, especially after Wall Street already celebrated the strategy. And buried inside that admission was something even more important. The original AI calculation had underestimated the cost of human trust. Klarna's experiment revealed something many executives are only beginning to understand. Replacing workers is not always the same thing as replacing work. The AI genuinely performed useful labor. It handled millions of conversations, it reduced response times, it automated routine interactions successfully. None of that was fake. But customer service was never only about processing requests. It was also about emotional reassurance, interpretation, judgment, context, de-escalation, trust. And those variables become most important precisely when the situation becomes least predictable, which creates a dangerous executive temptation because the early numbers from automation often look spectacular. The savings appear immediate, the efficiency gains are measurable, the labor reduction is visible, but the hidden costs arrive later, in churn, in damaged customer relationships, in employee burnout, and escalations, and compliance risk, and reputational decline, and customers who leave silently instead of complaining publicly. And this is the part of the AI transition many companies still do not fully understand. The first phase of automation usually removes friction from the company. The second phase often removes resilience from the system itself. Because systems optimized entirely for efficiency become fragile when reality stops behaving predictably, and human beings specialize in unpredictability. Every major industry is now studying versions of the same question Klarna confronted. Healthcare systems evaluating AI diagnostic tools, banks automating lending decisions, law firms reducing document review labor, retail companies automating customer interactions, insurance firms automating claims processing, universities experimenting with AI tutoring systems. The technology is advancing quickly. That part is undeniable. The more difficult question is whether institutions understand the full consequences of reorganizing human systems around automation, not just economically, socially, psychologically, operationally. Because the most dangerous assumption in technological disruption is often this: if something can be automated, it should be. Kodak made a version of that mistake in reverse. They delayed transformation too long. Some AI companies may now be making the opposite mistake, accelerating transformation faster than the surrounding human systems can absorb safely. And somewhere tonight, another executive team is staring at a spreadsheet showing labor costs beside AI deployment projections. The same excitement, the same pressure, the same promises of efficiency, the same confidence that this time the calculation is obvious. What happened at Klarna suggests the calculation may be far more complicated than it first appears. 700 worker equivalents disappeared from one company's support operation. Quietly, almost invisibly, the AI worked until the parts of the job requiring trust became impossible to measure cleanly. And that may become one of the defining economic tensions of the AI era. Not whether machines can imitate human labor, but whether institutions understand what parts of human systems were never purely labor to begin with. Klarna proved that artificial intelligence can replace enormous amounts of routine work. What happened next suggested something more unsettling. Replacing workers and replacing understanding are not always the same thing, and by the time companies discover the difference, the system they replaced may already be gone. Next on Disruption Files, Amazon versus retail. How one company used artificial intelligence to dismantle an entire industry, and the 40 million small business owners who never saw it coming.